When Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege launched, it was riddled with microtransactions here, there and everywhere. Ubisoft were obviously once again trying to grab as much money as they possibly could. But this was a time when Ubisoft weren't as greedy as they used to be, having just been on a downward spiral a year after Assassin's Creed Unity's launch, which did have many greedy microtransactions implemented into the multiplayer, much like Rainbow Six Siege did in its initial release window. Before the release of Rainbow Six Siege, there were many betas where the public could test out the game for themselves. Ubisoft were releasing so many betas that it left people skeptical about how the game would turn out when it came to its release. Many were unsure if Ubisoft even had faith in the project, as if Ubisoft were releasing so many betas, then the game must be broken and buggy in some way. The lack of content on release left many wanting to see more from the game, as it was quite enjoyable, but sadly there was not a lot of content. Apart from a few base modes, this meant that the player base got bored very quickly. Although Rainbow Six Siege was fun and replayable, it didn't stay like that for a long time. If you really wanted to play competitively against other players, you could join the ranked playlist, but you could only play this mode if you had achieved level 20 in the standard multiplayer. But to play in ranked now, you have to be level 30. For new players to Rainbow Six Siege at launch, it was quite difficult to truly have fun. Although you could play match after match, there was still a massive learning curve to get your head and hands around. Siege wasn't, and still isn't, like your normal shooter, because in Siege, you can do so many more tactical moves, like move your gun from left to right. With Siege, your hands and eyes need to work together in a sort of dance to execute skillful aiming. Eventually you'll start to appreciate and accept the difficulty and intricacy of Rainbow Six Siege, including all of its gameplay quirks. And it is then when you'll really start to have a great time. And if you don't appreciate and accept the difficulties, then you may have a stunted experience whilst playing. And it may even slow down your progress of learning how to play. You do need to really accept the difficulty that comes with Rainbow Six Siege. But even after all of that, Rainbow Six Siege has done a lot to improve its experience for new and concurrent players alike. Even though when you start off in Rainbow Six Siege there are a lack of operators with the standard edition, this may leave the gameplay feeling hollow, empty and lacking content. But after a few matches where you can start to learn the intricacies of Siege's mechanics, it is then when you really should buy your first operator. Siege is an experience that is not like your standard first-person shooter. Siege's mechanics are integrated into its very soul, and that's what makes it so interesting and rewarding to play. To learn where the enemies are placing traps and what characters you're actually up against as you search for the opposite team as a drone, it's just so satisfying and really adds a fun amount of tension. Personally, I am very persistent when playing games. Even if I don't like a game for who knows what reason, I will still push through the anger and frustration until I have reached a certain level of skill. I just personally can't stop, and that's what I love about Rainbow Six Siege. The gameplay in Siege is very addicting and it has more meaningful action. Tension can be heightened by the team count being lower than most conventional shooters. The few amount of players makes you feel like an important asset to the team, as every player counts in a 5v5 match, as you really need to start playing tactically and use your operators' abilities to their capable limits. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege really should get the recognition it deserves for being one of the best shooters that we have to this day. And although there's a steep learning curve which may turn some gamers away from Rainbow Six Siege, perseverance is the biggest quality you need when playing Siege. No one will play nice to help you along your journey. You need to fight for your right to play Siege, and that means you have to play tactically and smart, and with your brain, not your trigger finger. I feel like everyone is starting to get bored of standard FPSs, where all the enemies are bullet sponges, you can wall run, and your character is a smart mouth. In this time of video games where the markets are so oversaturated, Siege may just be the first person shooter model we have all been looking for. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe and turn on that notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you and goodbye.